Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo. I am your host and keeper, the Harry Channel. And with me tonight are minions DrFunctional, Phenomena, Sora Luna,
Hello.
SkepTock,
It's a small world after all.
and joining us in a little while, we hopefully will have Serenity later, and I almost positive we're going to have Geodes later. So, how are you doing, those of you that are here now?
Good.
Good. It's been a busy day. It was like probably going to be the last warm day, I think, until next year, hopefully in Silicon Valley.
Shut up!
What?
Warm day.
It was warm. It's definitely interesting seeing how things are going in terms of reopening. Traffic is starting to get back to its normal shitty self, but still
Yeah.
not what it was before, because it used to be that unless you left work at 2:30 in the afternoon, you were going to sit in traffic for an extra hour just for reasons.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And you could sort of buy your way out of it by getting a Tesla or something with an electric car decal, and that would let you use the HOV lane. If you're rich and have no friends, this is your best option.
The plug is just farther down the street, though.
Yeah. But now there are just so many Teslas on the road that you can't even. The carpool lane is effectively useless. So you can either get a jetpack or a motorcycle. Those are your options.
For clarification, if you have an electric car, you're allowed to be in the HOV lane?
Yes.
Temporarily. No, it's not. Well, yes and no. There are a certain number of stickers that they give out each year. And different manufacturers sort of get an allowance. This is to sort of stimulate sales. But if they sell too many cars, you don't necessarily get a sticker. Also, it's only good for a limited amount of time. So you would effectively have to buy a new electric car every 2 or 3 years. So it's only there to sort of motivate people to buy new electric cars. If you bought an electric car 10 years ago, they don't care about you.
There is a critical time during the day in Silicon Valley where being able to use the HOV lane really does work for you. Yeah, where there is a bona fide, you're stop and go, and I mean literally stopped for 30 seconds at a time, and then move 10 feet. Kind of that's the kind of gridlock Harry's talking about.
It's unbelievable.
But the HOV lane hasn't filled up yet. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, the HOV lane isn't useful if it fills up or if there's some kind of accident, because then you. The emergency vehicles are coming
counterflow lanes here, which kind of are supposed to do what HOV lanes do, right? They switch them over depending on which direction is the into the city in the morning, out of the city into the suburbs in the afternoon to help with that. And that's usually where every single accident ever happens, is on the counterflow lane, which means that it just paralyzes the highway. Because people are dumb.
Yeah, well, I mean, traffic's still better than it used to be. But to be fair, even back in, I want to say, 1985, I was actually in Silicon Valley in 1985 doing a weird job. And I was being a corporate spy for a restaurant. And my assignment was to it was a chain restaurant. And my assignment was to get a job at this horrible chain restaurant that was like a coffee shop chain thing, and figure out what was going on. It was fairly obvious that it was a husband and wife, and the wife had one restaurant on the other side of the bay, and the husband had the one here. And what they were doing was moving food and liquor from one store to the other, since neither of them individually would make bonuses for keeping costs down. So they just started moving shit from one to the other. My job was to get a job at this restaurant and figure out who knew what was going on, figure out who was in on it. And even back in '86 when I was there, the traffic, you could be on like an expressway, a city street, and it could take you the better part of 45 minutes to go 10 blocks. It was just crazy. So on the plus side, COVID has at least made traffic a lot easier. Woohoo! Silver linings all the way around.
Of course, being 1986, he was wearing parachute pants.
Oh, no, that was in the 90s, my friend. That was not 1986.
They couldn't touch him. No,
Yeah,
no,
can't
no,
touch
no.
that. Absolutely. But I later went on to work with a woman who was one of MC Hammer's fly girls. And she had excellent stories, way better than any of my restaurant espionage stories. Speaking of things, I've been looking at all this crap that's been going around in terms of recipe land. And I stumbled across this thing. These are air fryer pumpkin cheesecake enchiladas.
I would try. I would try.
Yeah, I think, what did I put this in the spreadsheet? It's listed under
White girl
I described
thing?
this as White Girl Pumpkin Fever Volume 1. So, because you just no. I mean, at least we're not pretending that it's a 2-ingredient recipe, but she's taking these tortillas, putting cream cheese and pumpkin mash in them, and then putting sugar all over the top and whipped cream and throwing them in the air fryer. It's like,
yum nom nom.
you
nom,
could
nom,
you could
nom,
take
nom.
a shoe and do the same thing and get the same result. I just don't see the point. Functional, what do you think? Am I just being difficult?
It disturbs me. First off, the tortillas. Why tortillas? Why not make your own,
Like puff pastry?
any kind of dough? Really,
Mm-hmm.
it would puff better. It would taste fresher than those store-bought tortillas. Pumpkin spice and cream cheese together. It's.
Hate
I mean,
Camel
it's-
gets it.
I mean, if you're into pumpkin spice and you like rich,
It's basically like a
Sneaky
pumpkin
stuff.
pie cheesecake in a tortilla.
Yeah, it's.
but
sad
I think
and it's
Harry's
wrong.
point of like she's just adding sugar upon sugar upon sugar to mediocre stuff without any sort of like imagination. It's just kind of
Yeah,
no thanks.
yeah. I'm
It's
not going
mommy
out.
blogger recipes.
I'm not going out looking for these damn things. These 2-ingredient apple cake recipes like we had last week, and all this other. It just finds me. The YouTube algorithm has decided I need to slowly lose my sanity.
They've got 1.64 million subscribers. That video, as of right now, only has like 1,000 and some odd views.
Their engagement numbers suck.
That is awful.
That is actually pretty terrible. We've got a bunch of people showing up for the show. I don't know why it's telling me we have 2 viewers, given that we have Hate Camel, Spud Gun, Apple,
Hello.
Spittle
Jenna.
Buggies. Let's see, who else is
Jenna.
there? Keever Dam and Jenna. Yeah, Jenna still counts.
Hello.
Howdy. Good. We've got people watching. Excellent.
Body people.
So let's see. What is the first thing we were going to? Oh, wait. I also have this. Hold on.
I mean, if you're going to go to
There are
the,
a few
the
things.
interwebs to learn to cook or get recipes, get something that will teach you something new or like just be fresher or there's a reason why the traditional ways of baking and cooking still hold true. You can change things up a bit. Like I told Harry today for lunch, I made risotto. I put breakfast sausage in it, porcini and button mushrooms in the risotto, and then 2
Yum.
fried eggs on top. So it was like breakfast risotto. I mean, sure, it's not a traditional risotto, but I mean, it's still using basic techniques, putting them together, and having something simple, delicious, quick. Boom, done.
Okay.
Oh,
Here
there we
we are. A pumpkin spice pot pie. Now,
Why do you do this?
what? Why?
Well, okay, so I shouldn't say anything because I have tried pumpkin spice flavor spam, which I quite enjoyed. So
If you hand me a pot pie and you use the words pot pie and there isn't chicken in it and or turkey or something that I
Carrots,
expect to be in a pot pie,
onions, and-
I'm gonna hurt somebody.
Oh my
like,
god.
okay, let's break it down. What is pumpkin spice? We're looking at nutmeg, cinnamon, possibly cloves, and cardamom if you go fancy. All of these spices are delicious in the savory dishes.
Mm-hmm.
Take away just the aspect of pumpkin spice, and you're looking at, I don't know, Afghan style food, right? Or other cultural foods.
Yeah,
So
I
it could
mean,
be delicious.
chalakadu is fantastic. I love
Could be
pumpkin
delicious.
with the yogurt and the. Yeah, that's great.
So I think we might just be, because of the idea of just pumpkin spice, because they're not necessarily putting pumpkin in it. It's just the spice mix.
Okay, pumpkin spice cornbread.
Yeah, that'll
Again,
be quite tasty.
why does this exist? Make a pumpkin cake or make a cornbread. Don't make the unholy union of the two things.
Don't call a fucking pumpkin cobbler with puff pastry on top a fucking pot pie. You damn savage.
Okay, well, this is basically somebody taking perfectly good cornbread and screwing it up by adding pumpkin to it, because this guy is apparently an aspiring basic white girl, because he's just... I'm sorry. I used to be able to insult people to their faces before COVID. You know, I'd go out and I'd tease young ladies for wearing Ugg boots and tell them that they're basic and stuff, and then they just, you know, sneer at me. Now I'm reduced to doing this on the internet, wasting your time. So let's see. Does anybody have anything they want to say before we dive into the actual show?
Why do you hate me?
Did you just say why you hate me?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something very
Maybe, like,
comforting
torturing me.
about being a basic white girl sometimes. It's
Yeah.
like the joy, the simplicity of childhood.
And no freaking kidding.
Where
That
did
actually
this
might
pumpkin
be.
spice come from? Was
You
it
mean
just
the-
like coffee additive at some point? Like what? I don't even know what it is.
I don't know, but I was at the restaurant supply store. I didn't even go down that aisle because I didn't want to become sad. So William Shatner went into space, and
Yay.
apparently George Takei decided to be a little bitch about it.
What?
Yeah, so, but Shatner, I thought this was a fantastic reply. Don't hate George. The only time he gets press is when he talks bad about me. He claims 50 plus years ago, I took away a camera angle that denied him 30 more seconds of primetime TV. I'm giving it back to him now by letting him spew his hatred for the world to see. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we talked about that on the Star Trek stream a little bit today. Because
Oh, so that's I was wondering what the context, because I saw you guys post the screenshot of that. I didn't know the context.
Just behind the scenes feuds, and because this was such prevalent news, we talked, a bit about this, and it's just like Bill has treated this entire thing as such a class act, and he hasn't really said anything until now. October 15th at 6:46 p.m. about it. And then he says, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm letting him hang himself by his own petard to show what a just petty, evil, little insignificant man.
Yeah. Okay, since we've got a bumper crop of Canadians with us, tell me...
That's racist.
Tell me about this. Dr. Dina Hinshaw apologizes, says Alberta teen didn't actually die from COVID. Can you fill me in on what this thing is all about?
Yeah, so it all started with on Twitter they post, probably all provinces are doing this. You post the numbers the daily deaths from COVID. And there was like an addendum to one of the tweets where it was posted also a 14-year-old just passed away. And then it sort of devolved with people being very upset of how cold announcing the death of a child from COVID was. So that's what actually kind of started everything, where he's like, you can't just talk about the death of a child, whatever disease it is, just callously like this, like it's a statistic. And that got a lot of people upset, which brought it actually to the attention of the family of the 14-year-old it wasn't never mentioned by name. It was just the age and that it was a recent death. And the family member, a sister, I believe, said that actually my brother had stage 4 brain cancer. And while he may have contracted COVID a couple days prior to his death, he died from brain cancer. Like, that's what they said. Like, they were upset. They're like, no, he didn't die from COVID. He was on death's door anyway. So it was the family was upset. So now they've changed the policy so that you know, they're not going to be speaking about minors anymore in that way. So or talking about them. I don't know if they're going to completely, I doubt they're going to ignore them from the statistics because that would be dumb, but I think they won't advertise it on Twitter anymore.
I picture these CMOs, these health officials, all sitting in a room, I guess a virtual room at this point, you know, with a big whiteboard with with their names on it, and like they hear something like this, and they're like, "Yeah, we got one!" And like somebody marks one up under Dr. Dina's. It's so just unabashedly like shameful that people. It doesn't, like, to me, it doesn't matter the age. Like, sure, you can give out statistics, but like, why do you have to give press releases on this stuff? Why do you have to force it to the forefront?
They want to justify the decisions that they've already made.
Exactly.
You know, they're busy pushing. I think, was it Biden's pushing for 5-year-olds at some point? We want to get it down to the point where we have a vaccine for 5-year-olds. So if you're going to have that be policy, you kind of need some reason to justify your policy. So it's kind of like in the sales bullpen where they ring the bell. It's like, "Ooh, we got one."
Exactly.
Yeah, which is really callous and gross. Anyway, anything more on this this nice lady? I think you summed it up pretty well, Sora.
No, that was just it. It was one of those, because we often discuss about how they're trying to skew the statistics. Like, everybody is dying from this, even though, you know, because the last diagnosis after a long illness will be like COVID, or they test positive. Not that they, you know, and we all know that can be a false test that happen, but regardless, it seems that you test positive even at your last hours of life, you die from it instead of dying, you know, maybe or from complications associated or whatever it is. And it's just interesting that such an extreme example happened and they were kind of forced to re-examine how they do it. I also personally feel that it's a little bit uncomfortable how they announce the death of children as well. I mean, it shouldn't matter. It's, you know, statistics, but it is a little bit cold when you're like, haha, see, I told you, look what's happening. The deaths prove us right, which is not nice.
Yeah. It should be the other way around.
Well, they should, if they're caring about people, they should be happy to say, "Hey, turns out we were worried about nothing." Great. I mean, wouldn't that be the best possible news?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get into a big long thing about COVID tonight. I mean, it's been a long 18 months of to flatten the curve, and I think we're all getting kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
So, LA Times. Oh, go away.
Piss off. By the way, Harry, pumpkin spice is cinnamon and ground ginger. That's it.
All right. So I'm apparently can't bring this up all of a sudden. That was working fine a moment ago.
Give me one moment, Harry. I might be able to.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing this one, that would be great.
Oh yeah, you know, it got me too.
So in a nutshell, there was a court decision that said the Remain in Mexico policy for people applying for sanctuary in the U.S. should remain in place. The former ICE director was part of the lawsuits to get this thing put together. And they had to basically go to the courts multiple times to sort of force the Biden administration to do it. And the Biden administration was, "Well, we need a plan." And the court said, "Well, you can just dust off the one you already had that was working just fine. You don't need umpteen months to come up with a plan for something you already have a plan for." So
I got a better plan. Just say no.
Yeah. Well, it is pretty tragic because they're really not the Biden administration really doesn't like it when the courts get in their way. Their heart is just not in this process of trying to, you know, go with this decision, because say what you will about the Orange Man and his mean tweets, the idea of having people stay in Mexico rather than come into the United States and then not show up for their hearings was a pretty darn good one. Well, I mean, unless you're
As-
under the assumption that there's no country in the world that's safe for immigrants except for the United States and Canada, in which case we've got about 7 billion people we're going to have to move here.
Yeah.
Has
Good luck.
Kamala
Yeah,
visited there yet?
exactly.
Even though she's like the immigration czar now.
Yeah. No,
Why do
she's
czars.
she's doing a number of jobs poorly. You know, she's not managing the border. Oh, no, well, that was a long time ago.
Say no more. Say no more.
Okay.
Nudge,
Let's
wink.
see. So this seemed a little surprising, not the kind of thing that happens very often.
You'll need to select your screen again, Harry.
I see it. I see it.
Okay.
I'm not having a boomer moment here. For one thing, I'm not a boomer. Somebody
God, that was
sad. So did you guys hear about this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Conservative MP stabbed to death. He was in church, wasn't he?
It was a meet and greet.
It was at a surgery.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a 25-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of murder after the attack at a church on Leh on the Sea. They recovered a knife.
A Somali man.
Mm-hmm.
They recovered a knife and are not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. A counterterrorism team will lead the investigation. Yeah, this is pretty messed up. You don't just kill politicians at churches.
But yeah, that's kind of like...
A surgery, as I understand it, is the opportunity to meet and talk with your constituents.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And when a constituent has a particular problem or something that we want to talk to them about, they say, I want a meeting when my MP comes, by this public place, usually church, some public civic building. And they sit down and talk one-on-one. And usually there'll be one other person in attendance, but there's no security or anything. I mean, he was completely unguarded. And the guy just lunged across and stabbed him in the chest, killed him.
Multiple times. This was about 4 years after another MP was murdered.
Wow, has that been 4 years?
I think so. I think it was like...
Yeah, it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
Well, this just shouldn't happen. I mean, full stop. This kind of violence is just absolutely terrible.
Well, isn't the Somali guy really the victim here, though?
Okay, Spudgun. Well, he may have had some sort of emergency that justifies him doing what he was doing. At least it wasn't sexual this time. It's pronounced Lee on C, not Lay on C. Sorry about that.
I thought it was lay on hands. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Wait, Spud, aren't you a Brit? You can't trust any pronunciation from a Brit. They can't even say aluminum right. Get out of here.
Oh, you mean aluminium?
Aluminium.
I've watched so much Top Gear that I occasionally, it's pretty bad. And then, of course, my friends mock me terribly when I use English pronunciations for things. So let's see. Anyway, this is terrible. There's really not much to say about it. Unfortunately, we don't have Prospero with us tonight for this one, but the governor's race in Virginia is definitely heating up, and it looks like the Democrats are pumping a huge amount of money into what I think not that long ago they would have assumed was just not going to be a contest for them. You have any thoughts on this, Skep?
I'm just looking up real quickly what the 538 is saying about, they've got McAuliffe at 47.6 and Youngkin at 45.1. And Youngkin has been trending a little bit closer, but, can't quite make it across the finish line. The Democrats really don't want to lose this governor's race. The governor, that's a relatively strong governorship in Virginia. At least it was when I lived there. I don't know if that's changed, but at any rate, McAuliffe is a national figure with who may have further ambitions. I'm sure he does. I'm sure he thinks he does. And him losing would be, another strong Democrat down from their point of view. So.
Well, there's this piece from Rasmussen Reports from just a few days ago, and they talk about sort of the key points to look out for. And so much like what you're talking about is why is it so close, right? I mean, the whole country's pretty much divided. The fact that Virginia is divided doesn't really come as a huge surprise to me. The fact that it's so close is what's really interesting.
Yeah, actually, the latest single poll that came in, this is from Trafalgar's. That is actually that is a debt. They really do a try and get a fair distribution.
Right.
They have them tied at 48%.
Well, it would be a huge upset if a Republican suddenly became the governor of Virginia in the current year.
Oh my goodness, Northern Virginia would lose its mind.
Yeah,
but I think there may be potential for electoral shenanigans, shall we say? As sticks.
It would be free and fair and thoroughly fortified and impervious to any kind of fraud.
I think there's real potential for free and fair elections, is what I was trying to say.
Most voted for governor in West Virginia. That's what I think is going to happen. Voter turnout will be fantastic.
I think you mean Virginia, but yes, point well taken. It'll be what it needs to be to get the job done. And it breaks down.
You could have 85 million people in Northern Virginia vote for this man.
Well, it breaks down on the kinds of issues you'd expect: vaccination mandates, critical race theory. It's all the things you would expect. Abortion. And these guys are obviously on opposite sides of it. So if this wasn't upset, a lot of soul searching would have to be done, because you can't just write off a Virginia Republican win and just say, oh, it's just a fluke. That's not a fluke that would happen. I kind of suspect that at the last minute, the Democrats will probably hold it. Like Skep said, the amount of blue that's there adjacent to DC is just almost impossible to overcome.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's so I just want to see what this Virginia state legislature is, and there is pretty substantial Republican majority in the. Wait a minute. I may not be reading this right. Never mind. Just move on.
I am going to just move on. But I think the one thing that they were talking about that was interesting is that it looks like the amount of voting traffic that we're seeing is a lot less versus 2020. So it's possible that apathy is kind of setting in. So if the Democrats, the voters, are being apathetic about this thing, that gives the Republican a real advantage, because Republicans have a tendency to actually show up at the polls.
Yeah, a Republican governor in Virginia is going to have a heavily Democratic legislature to deal with. So it likely will be kind of gridlock, I would think, which from the libertarians' point of view is the best of all possible worlds.
No, it is the best, because basically the only thing they do are the things that everybody agrees on.
Right.
Which is exactly what we want.
Right. It's actually the rational point of view. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if you want small government, it is.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
That is the rational point of view. Okay, so I think it was Hate Camel who sent this one to me. We're doing this again. Geodes.
I'll do what I can. Give me one moment.
Everything's going to crap on my end.
This is about the
Financial
new
Times.
Chinese missile?
Yep.
I'll see what I can do on my end. No promises. Nope, it's doing the same thing for me.
Okay, well, basically, the Chinese have been making advances in their hypersonic missile program, and this one's capable of holding a nuclear warhead.
Yay!
So just another thing to be very afraid of.
How much pumpkin spice does it hold?
I don't know, but isn't that considered to be like a chemical weapon?
You think the Chinese comms care?
Just launch a huge can of Axe body spray
There you go.
into orbit and probably destroy everything. Yeah, no, the Chinese are, and the Russians both, are investing an awful lot of money in hypersonic missiles. The point of a hypersonic missile is that it tends to be a force multiplier that levels the playing field, because compared to our carriers, their carriers suck. Our Navy is so much better equipped in all of the ways that really matter than either the Russian Navy or the Chinese Navy.
That's really an
that the
important-
hypersonic missiles can level things out for them. Sorry, go ahead, Skep.
Well, that's a big part of guarding against hypersonic missiles. The thing with hypersonic missiles is you have to have high-powered surface radars on the ground, and you have to be able to have good coverage, and you have to be able to project them. In other words, you're talking about a United States Navy vessel basically can do that very efficiently, and we do that. We're ramping up some very secret radars that are being put together for just that reason. With the right kind of radar and the right kind of early enough information, Patriot system can knock down a hypersonic missile. At least theoretically.
Yeah, but if it's nuclear tipped, it could get far closer than you want it to for that system to kick in.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why they're trying to develop those microwave lasers.
Well, that's one of the reasons.
If you can fry a missile, it can't detonate the nuclear warhead.
Well, that's part of the reason
In
why
theory.
the new destroyers and the Ford-class aircraft carriers have massive extra amounts of power available to them. So they basically have everything that's necessary to put projected energy weapons on them.
But I definitely agree with Skep that the most important thing is a tracking system, because otherwise your weapons are useless. You'll never be able to hit it or see it before it hits you.
Yeah,
So
you
you
won't
need to
be
be-
able to react to it if that thing is at
Yeah.
apogee. When you detect it, you're done.
Well, all of this stuff is part of a huge network. It isn't just the ship that has the radar. A lot of what we're spending this money on with F-35s and new types of AWACS planes are the ability to take multiple sets of sensor input and turn it into a sort of a synthetic model of the battlefield. So in terms of like the early detection, they're going to be pulling stuff from satellites, from multiple radar sources, and then synthesizing it in. In terms of the firing control, obviously you need to be able to get kind of a bead on this thing.
Well, yeah, actually the command and control systems are so good, they'll actually present you with the firing solution and say, we recommend you hit the big red button now. That's what you're going to say to you.
Yeah. It's
And that's essentially what you'll do. You won't have time to check the math.
Yeah, I think this is what Becca Fairley's husband does. He does fire control stuff, doesn't he?
Fire control technician on board a ship is the guy who punches the button to fire the Aegis missile system, or the ASROCs, or whatever missile system needs. They're also the guys who level the shore bombardment guns. Not that that's likely to come back into vogue anytime soon, but that's the they all work in the weapons department, which is one of the deck divisions aboard ship. And anyway,
yeah, and I only mention that because she's mentioned it on stream before. So the YouTube cancels Rewind after years of everybody thinking it sucks. Yeah, I mean, talk about something we can all get behind.
Right.
I like the way that they went out and got the small creators and honored those, those plucky can-do spirit small creators.
Yeah. Well, they weren't
like
going
NBC.
after people based on views or popularity or anything else. They were.
No.
Yeah.
It just went for weirdness.
Yeah.
And a whole lot. I mean, there was a lot of people I had no idea who they were, but were apparently like big with the kids. The kids, they like the video games you hear, and they watch the YouTubes to watch the kids play the video games instead of playing the video games themselves.
Well, I mean, it was just so cringy. And it just
Mhm.
got cringier and cringier and cringier.
Every
It's like
year, yeah.
we understand that you want YouTube. That YouTube would be great if you could just kick all the U's off and only have top tier creators, and you would essentially create a new TV network of
Or just-
on-demand content. That's what you really want because that's where the money is. So you made YouTube Rewind try to sort of feed into that, and then of course it was how many pictures of Lily Singh can we have, and it just became more and more corporate and more progressive whitewashing and more cringe with every single one of these things. I'm surprised it took them this long, because what's the point of this exercise if all they do is take heat for it?
They should
So
just
they finally
rebrand
made the
and
decision.
add a word to YouTube instead of taking away the U. Just put a screw at the front. Screw
Yeah.
you to.
No, it's just terrible. Were you trying to say something, Skep?
No, that's okay. It just Rewind was needed to go about 3 years ago.
Oh,
it's-
that is hot. That is hot. No,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, that's right. It overstayed its
That's
welcome.
when it jumped the shark. It jumped the shark beyond belief at that moment.
Do you know where the phrase came from for "jump the shark," Sora?
With the fawns,
The Fonz. Okay, I
whatever
was
that
just checking.
show is.
Happy
Yeah.
days.
Happy days.
And like the first few, like it was kind of funny listening to people just tear that stuff apart. But after the first like 2 or 3, it just got tired. It's like, oh, a new one came out. Great. Now I have to listen to 50 million creators talking about something I just can't give a shit about anymore and don't
Yeah.
even find it funny. It's just pathetic.
Well, when Fonzie jumped that pool with the shark in it on his motorcycle while wearing his leather jacket and no helmet, I still remember everybody in my family kind of looking at each other going, what did we just look at?
I liked his yellow fur or orange fur.
Yeah, what the hell just happened? And that's sort of what every version of Rewind I've ever seen has been like. You look at it and go, why does this exist? So it's like a serial shark jumping incident.
Like pumpkin spice tortillas air fried.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, let's see. Going into the education block here.
Oh, good.
YouTube
More
talked about to
depressive
do a
stuff.
seasonal pumpkin spice video. There we go.
Yeah. Well, here's a group of people that really care about this. So, educators ready for fall, but a teacher shortage looms.
You
Apparently,
don't say.
after hosting all these Zoom things and being told that they are the real heroes for the last 18 months, they're just so stressed out that they just can't even. And I know a lot of people aren't, there's a lot of absenteeism or a lot of openings in a lot of different industries. But it seems that, I don't know, I kind of didn't really expect a lot of teachers to sort of bail from the workforce. I don't get, are they scared? Are they genuinely afraid? Or have they just... Yeah, I don't really have my finger on what's going on. Does anybody have any theories about why so many of these people are just not choosing to work now?
There's a good one that I heard from, I don't remember who, but, they were instituted mandates in a lot of these different school boards to get the COVID shot. And a lot of them, a sizable enough chunk said no. And they said, well, then you either take it, you get fired. And they, stood their ground. They didn't take it. They left the workforce, the position. And I mean, it was a two-edged sword because on one hand, the media gets to say, oh, hey, look, our school board is 100% vaccinated. Whereas, because you fired anybody who isn't. And just like with nurses, now they're turning around and saying, oh my God, there's a shortage. Well, how did this happen? Whatever will we do? It's feeding that perpetual fear machine. The media loves it. The media eats it up. Regular people, I think, doesn't matter your stance on the shot or the mandatory mandates. I think people are just getting sick of this shit. Like, people want to go to work, they want their kids to go to school, and they just want to live their lives. And I think we're seeing a lot of that playing out with even people who might have gotten the shot are just so against the mandates that they're walking away from the positions that are now mandating that people have to be jabbed.
Well,
Well, I have a competing theory.
Please.
I think it's entirely possible that, I mean, a lot of these groups, the NEA, is predominantly female, right? Women are overrepresented in this group.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that a lot of people have taken time off and sort of rethought how they want to work during the lockdown. And I didn't think this was going to happen, but I know of a couple people personally who have just decided, no, I actually find my life to be more fulfilling not making the money and staying home and doing more stuff with my family. So there might be
And they have
probably
the
a much
resources to do that.
right, and they have the resources to do it because their partner is making a big Silicon Valley income.
Yeah.
Or they can make a transfer over to doing some digital online work.
Sure, I think some
Not
people,
as like a full salary, but like as to supplement that, so it's easier to do that kind of stuff and be a stay-at-home parent.
Well, not just teachers. I think there are a number of people who just sort of realize that they don't need to be in the workforce, at least not right now.
Well, this is kind of the thing on my end also, because I mean, not to do a direct comparison, but one of the big things in my business is vaccine mandates are going to be required to go into the building, or you're going to have a negative COVID test every week. And
no pressure.
Yeah, really. And it's just like, I'm vaccinated. I have no interest in uploading and giving them my medical card info.
Funny how they're not going to mandate measles or rubella negative tests every week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah. No, but I actually am leaning more and more in favor of the, like what Burkita Law suggests, where he's basically saying, like the public schools, and granted, this is a slightly separate thing, like from kind of what we're discussing, but he's saying, like the public schools in general are not really actually in terms of the institutions themselves are not really interested in educating your kids and taking care of your kids. And in fact, actually a lot of times they're more interested in indoctrinating or just pushing an ideological agenda. He says, the best thing you can do is just take your kids out and homeschool. And he says, and it really is actually very possible, even for people who don't think it is. It's just a matter of putting in the work. So.
Well, considering the amount of money that we pay to build a school system, if we're going to pay this amount of money, I would like the damn thing to work.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I completely understand what everybody's seen with, the Zoom lessons become, kind of cluing parents into what's actually going on. I can completely understand why homeschooling would be an option. If I had, a kid of school age right now, I would definitely homeschool them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just because I probably want to turn them into a tiny little miserable clone of me. Okay, Billy, it's time to learn your ordinary differential equations tonight. I don't wanna.
But Dad, you're not my real dad.
All the other kids are teasing me anyway.
Hey, do you know that annually we spend $1.4 trillion on public education in this country? Do you know what, if we abolished public education, do you know what that would do to the economy?
It would certainly free up a lot of money for other things.
Oh my God. When the amount of economic activity that introducing any significant portion of that money to anything but savings, which I guarantee you 90% of it would not go into savings. It would absolutely it would buoy our economy for 15, 20 years. I mean, it would change our world. And all we have to do is make education private.
Yeah, the problem with a lot of the way we do stuff in these labor markets, and in my opinion, is that we've somehow decided that people who have a conflict of interest because they personally benefit from certain decisions
Mhm.
are viewed as experts. I don't view the nurses union as experts on healthcare.
Mm.
I mean, if they
No.
have something important to say, like, there's a specific problem that they're outlining, absolutely fine. I'm not saying they don't have a right to say stuff, but the idea that nurses or doctors out on a picket line are necessarily the only voice you should listen to and trust about the conditions when they themselves stand to benefit from whatever the changes are. We do the same thing with the teachers. It's like we
Yes.
need to have smaller student to teacher ratios. Why?
If
Prove to me why in
Right.
a specific circumstance 28 is better than 32 is better than 40. And if you were doing this commercially, it might make more sense to have 60 and then have like two aides that essentially would handle things. Do it more like a university thing where you actually have section and groups. There are more than one way to do this. But if you're a union employing teachers, you're going to pick the way that maximizes the total profit, or excuse me, the total
Exact-
revenue
total
of the
revenue.
people
Yep.
in your union. Because your
Exactly.
job isn't to teach students. If you're the union, your job is to get as good a deal as possible for the people in your union.
That's the biggest problem in the United States right now is the teachers union and what they demand.
Yeah,
They demand
I
perfect
narrowly
comfort,
avoided
perfect-
having to join the damn thing.
perfect comfort, perfect safety, perfect job security, perfect everything at the expense of absolutely everyone.
Yeah.
It's a huge cost sink.
And we were just pre-COOF, we were going through a big dust up between the province and the teachers unions here, and then because of COOF and lockdowns, they all went immediately silent because they're like, "Oh shit! What if we lose our jobs? What if the kids don't go back to school? Blah blah blah." They're basically looking back at what they had and going, "Oh God, we're going to be lucky to have this when the dust settles on what's going on."
Mm-hmm.
Really got their ass kicked by that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no sympathy because like the median salary up here for a teacher, hell, the starting salary is something like $60K. I know it's Canuck bucks, but still. And then like the median is like something like 98 to 112. Like,
yeah, there's
that's
a lot of
pretty
extra
decent
money.
wage.
Well, there's a lot of extra money that they can make, above
Exactly,
the base.
because they work 8 months out of the year.
Well,
And then
not
you
just
can-
that,
you can
but
be
also master
tutors.
teacher certifications and things. They get paid extra for different things. Sorry, Sora, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and just because they work 8 months of the year in a school thing, but doesn't mean after school during summers. You have summer school. You've got being a tutor. There's a lot of extra revenue stream that they can go into.
Sure.
Here's an interesting problem that is developed, and it's gotten worse in the United States, and that is that teachers do not know very much about the subjects they teach a lot of times. You
Mhm.
don't have to be a history major to teach history anymore. You're an education major who can read the lesson plan, and that's essentially what they have are state-approved lesson plans that they go through. They cover what's in the lesson plan, and many of them have very little familiarity with the material. This is especially critical in things like physics and mathematics, where you have people who are mathematically illiterate. And they just read the words that are on this page and make the drawings, on the whiteboard, like what is in the lesson plan, and that's all they're required to do. That's considered by the NEA to be a satisfactory job of teaching. This is happening more and more, and it's getting worse and worse. And you know who the ones who get shortchanged the worst? The low end, poor economic schools, because they get the lousiest teachers. They get the teachers who just barely made it through an education curriculum and come out. Those people are going to teach math? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Wait. Are you saying a drama teacher isn't qualified to run a country?
Well,
They're not
hold on.
drama teachers. They're just teachers.
Well, they had a poet run a country, so you never know. But hold on. Actually, I
Michael
want to.
Haklov was
Yeah.
an exception, not the rule.
So I want to explore this just a little bit, if that's okay, because we
Sure.
actually do have time. the teaching thing is difficult, right? And I actually kind of wish I'd arranged this differently, because the next thing we're going to do is just touch on the school board stuff with the parents. I mean, domestic terrorists who are making insistent demands about their kids' education. And then the following article is going to be gifted education and de Blasio's thing about getting rid of it. So I kind of wish I'd arranged this a little differently, but we're going to talk more about this when we get to sort of the gifted education part of it. But how you teach this stuff clearly matters. And like I said, the union is only cares about maximizing profits. They do not care about doing a good job. At least they don't care about that as their primary thing. You know, it's teaching as a profession. We don't get the kind of innovation that we want when you mandate this stuff at a national level.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
By nationalizing education, they've effectively squashed any and all innovation. Like I was just suggesting using more of a university model for teaching something. Because if you have 60 students or 120 students, and then you have like a hierarchical system where you have section leaders or aides or TAs who actually help, who might be teachers that are in training, that would actually be really interesting, because then you could afford to bring in somebody from industry who actually knows how to do this stuff. Okay, you're going to teach these kids about science. Well, anybody who's qualified to teach science in the way that Skep is talking about, or mathematics, or any number of other things, could get a really high-paying job doing lots of other stuff. You know, programmer, engineer, you know, being the guy who automates the sewage treatment plant. You know, there's a million other things you could be doing, all of which pay more than teacher. But you could bring in people part-time, you know, who would volunteer some of their time essentially working for peanuts because they want to do community service. They want to help people. They would work with the professional educators. There's just so many things you could do, but the teachers union would view that as a threat. What they would want to do is make it so painful or impractical that nobody in their right mind would ever want to do that. They don't want the competition of the PhD who works at the local factory coming in there and offering, you know, a couple times a week to really kind of buff the skills that the students have. And that's not necessarily the best idea. It's just an idea, and it's an idea that will never happen as long as the NEA continues to get their way.
They don't want any ideas but their own. You know, the tiny view of that was when I taught long division to two of my grandchildren, and they got yelled at by their teacher for showing the other students how it worked. Said they were doing it wrong.
And that's just crazy, because of all the things out there, it's a fundamental principle of mathematics that there are multiple ways of doing these things.
Yeah, no,
you know,
there's only
it's like,
one
no,
way to the NEA.
you can't move the parentheses around. That's not allowed. Well, it says right here, the associative property says I can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's a field. Duh. It's like, no, you suck. You're dumb. And they won't let you do that.
Addition is commutative. It works like this.
I ran into this crap when I was in high school, and I went to this math competition, and they asked a question about this thing called mathematical induction, and I gave them Peano's formulation for mathematical induction as expressed by Bertrand Russell. And because I gave them a different definition than what was in the textbooks that they were teaching out of, they told me I was wrong.
Yeah. No, you were just more right than they could understand. They were not prepared for the truth.
But the thing is, they're equivalent. They're equivalent definitions. They function the same way. Just slightly different, but they weren't into the mathematics that they were grading. That they were grading these math tests,
right?
You know, as part of this big academic competition thing, and they didn't know enough to know that these two things were the same.
That's exactly.
They were just going by the thing. Yeah, exactly. There's only one way that the federal government says you're allowed to do this.
Yeah,
and that's so incredibly dangerous. It's so incredibly dangerous.
Stultifying.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Moving on to the next thing. Now, I'm going to say here, there's something we're not going to say. We're not going to do what Steven Crowder did and say that in any way are we implying that trans people are sex offenders more often than anybody else or anything like that. Because I
Trans
think
people are gods.
I don't think that the trans part of it is really the interesting thing, right? Because that's a whole separate argument we can just set aside about whether, people can be gender fluid and use bathrooms, and let's just set that aside. The main issue here is that this father had his child forcibly sodomized in a bathroom at a high school.
And he was angry.
He was angry because
Don't
the
you think
school
that's an
board tried to
overreaction?
cover this stuff up.
Don't you
Jesus
think that's an
Christ.
overreaction?
Christ.
Yeah, the school
Overreaction
board
by
tried
the-
to cover this up by basically just moving the kid around like he was a gropey Catholic priest in the 40 years ago.
Clearly
Well,
terroristic.
That happened. We're talking to the niece of some friends of the family goes to a high school here that at one point had a very good reputation of high academics, and so a public high school, and they decided to enact genderless bathrooms, so unisex bathrooms throughout. They closed that down within a term because of the amount of issues that they were having. People kept getting attacked. So,
well, regardless of
I
the
mean-
cause of it, if people are getting attacked, you have to find a way to make that. You have a burden of care. You don't want that to be the case in a high school because you require that people go to school. I mean, it's actually the law.
Mhm.
You can be picked up by the police for being a truant. School isn't optional, it's compulsory. So if you're compelling people to go there, you have to provide a safe environment for them. By whatever means necessary, honestly. I really don't want to get into the whole trans debate thing, like I said,
I
because
even
Crowder
think
got a
that's-
hard strike on this.
It's not even. I don't think that's even part of the debate. I think it's literally you open the door for people who would like to attack other people, and has nothing to do with their preferences and all about them seeing an opportunity to abuse others. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just that it's something they would have figured it out in a different way if it wasn't, but it was just provided in an easy. Like
Right.
I don't even think like taking someone's identity into consideration is necessarily a part of the story. It's just that this was an option, and it just facilitated easier targeting for someone who's a predator already, regardless
Yeah,
of
well-
how they look like.
Well, they are kind of in a vulnerable situation.
Yeah.
It's not a place where somebody wants to feel vulnerable or feel threatened. It's very hard to do your business when you're being hyper vigilant, whatever your business happens to be. But the idea that a parent in this situation would be forcibly dragged out of the chamber because he basically insisted that they talk about this thing. They didn't care about this parent, and they didn't really care about. It doesn't seem like they really cared about the situation with the student. They just wanted the problem to go away.
Mhm.
But here's where I get into a potentially unpopular part of this, because I'm a tiny bit sympathetic to a school board who's confronted by an irate parent who says, my problem is so important, I won't let you get on with the business of the school board until you address my problem.
Mhm.
Even when clearly it's an extremely bad problem. Yeah, he's, somebody has been wronged and he's justifiably angry about it. In spite of all of that, they have to be able to have a meeting and have to be able to run it in an orderly fashion. Now, the school board handled it about as badly as they could. They high-handedly said, "You step down, you piece of shit. We're denying that ever happened," and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And they went full nightmare on this guy, and he snapped. And that was what led to the altercation, where you see him being dragged away by the police, who clearly know how to restrain a guy.
Mhm.
There's incompetence all over this story, but I have that one slight dollop of understanding for the school board needing to run a meeting and have it be done in an orderly way, and somebody can't come in and just commandeer the meeting. No matter what.
There is no filibuster for him. He can't just stand up there and start reading from the phone book, and it's like, you can't leave. So
Right.
it's nothing like that. But if you allot to the community 5 minutes, whatever your time is, and he wants to talk about this legitimate issue for 5 minutes, they shouldn't be able to shut him down.
Well, they're the ones who decide what is a reasonable amount of time to talk about something. And I don't know whether they legitimately, truly thought that he was, making stuff up or was a crackpot, or if they, what I truly suspect is that they knew what was going on and just wanted him to shut up and be quiet, and so they could continue to ignore the problem.
Yeah, well, that's the big thing is it's not that it happened; it's that it was covered up. That's still being.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
another minor point here we are in all of our. I mean, nobody I know lives in this place, right? In Loudoun County, but we all are talking about this, and we all are engaged in this like it's some important thing that we have to have an opinion on. And I've definitely noticed that with people in California, this is often the case. Something happens in some other part of the country, and they feel justified in having opinions about things, right?
Right.
Like it should be up to me to decide what the transgender bathroom policy is in Loudoun County.
Yeah,
I'm perfectly happy with letting Loudoun County or that state decide what's going on. I can have an opinion about something, but it is absolutely none of my damn business what they decide to do, unless you're doing something that's discriminatory in a way that violates somebody's civil rights at the federal level. It's none of my business. However I feel about it is none of my business.
But here's why that's happening, I think. People think of all of these problems as having a national solution. They aren't thinking about what the policy is in Loudoun County. They're saying, why doesn't Loudoun County ascribe to the policy I think everyone in the country should ascribe to, and that the Department of Education should enforce?
Mm-hmm.
And that we've gotten to where we don't think of schools as being as having any local character, as being representative of our neighborhoods, our counties, and our states. Instead, we think of ourselves as living in the United States of Generica, where everything is the same from place to place, and everything is not the same from place to place. Attitudes, norms, behaviors, expectations, and laws. We got laws, culture, institutions vary considerably from place to place, and schools, among other things, should reflect that. And the assholes in California who opine about what should go on in Loudoun County don't understand that. It doesn't appeal to them intuitively, and most of them aren't bright enough to think of it on their own.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of local governance over these big entities. Like the federal government should have next to no involvement on day-to-day things, especially like this, and even maybe a little bit more governance on like a state or province level. Obviously there's more things to consider on that level, but even then it should be at a minimum. I think most of what should be law, culture, what have you, should be on a very local level, a municipal level, a city level, a county level, because like you say, Skep, that reflects that community, and that's who should be interested and have a say in what goes on in their community, because that's their backyard, that's their friends, their family, their coworkers, their peers. Like, it makes no sense to me that something like this should be a federal, or anything really should be a federal issue, other than protect the country and protect the borders, basically. Like, it just
Well, I can tell you why it's federal, or how it became federal. It falls under Title IX, and Title IX is so. This is we don't have Schoolhouse Rock anymore, so you don't get to learn about I'm just a bill. You have like a little cartoon with music that explains all this stuff. But what happens is the Congress passes legislation, right? It gets signed off, it becomes a law. And then various parts of the federal bureaucracy take that law and turn it into policy. And then they use their position as sort of the keepers of this policy. This is what the administration thinks this policy means based on the law. And then they say, this is how we think you should implement this policy to support the law. So Title IX, it is a thing that they use in the educational code that says, well, you know, if you receive money from the federal government in form of block grants, you need to protect the equal access to educational things in terms of sports and a lot of other stuff. Now, I'm sure there's other sections too, other than just Title IX. I'm not an expert on this particular thing, but it's that policy from the Department of Education that comes as a special little thing you have to pay attention to because of the federal block grants that screws you. And they say, this is how we think you should implement this policy. It comes down from on high in the Department of Education. Because realistically speaking, if you were trying to say, okay, how do I deal with transgender bathrooms? There's two considerations, right? I mean, the main thing is if somebody is changing their life around and they want to live a particular way, but they're forced to use the bathroom that doesn't match their gender identity. I think I got that right. Somebody can consider that as being harmful to their mental state. I think that's the hypothesis, right? But then there's just sort of the mechanical nuts and bolts of, sorry, I did not mean to do that, of how this actually works. If you have like 3 people out of a high school of several thousand, you know, would it be suitable just to have some unisex individual bathrooms for people who have need of such things? You know, because maybe they have some other kind of disability as well, just open it up to people who just sort of need to have their own stall. Versus if you had a much higher percentage of the people there, maybe you might need a policy that's different. I'm just trying to think of how it might vary from place to place in terms of how they want to handle stuff. And I would think that like the amount of sports stuff you have and how you handle that might affect the number of dressing rooms and how those all work. So having a one-size-fits-all solution doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, because I would think that bigger and smaller school districts and urban and rural might have very different requirements. Maybe I'm just naive.
Of course they would. Of course they would.
I don't get how this is, you know, whatever's up here in your head or your heart or whatever you want to say shouldn't freaking matter when it comes to relieving yourself. All that matters is your what chromosomes you have. Like, what's between your legs? Do you need to stand up or sit down? And even then, I'm of the mind that I hate urinals. Just have the goddamn stalls. Nobody will care. Nobody will see, you know, if you're one of those outliers, nobody will see or care. They'll see you walk into the stall and walk out of the stall. Hopefully you'll wash your hands at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody particularly likes going to a Major League Baseball game or something and getting the pee trough. I still remember the first time I was confronted with the pee trough. There was no ice. It was just this thing. I'm like, is this a thing where people wash their hands? What is this thing that I'm looking at? Where are the urinals? Oh, wait, you're actually supposed to stand at the pee trough and relieve yourself.
Maybe it's a Canadian thing. Maybe we have just more access to ice than you Californians, but
yeah,
we put ice in it for whatever reason. And it you know, obviously raises the level at which the vector of the stream is hitting, and you get more splashback. I fucking hate urinals. There's it always
are you talking about the paradichlorobenzene cake or
no he means actual ice.
Like actual ice. Like when you go to Rogers Center, I
know frozen
they would just keep dumping ice in it.
They do that in bars.
The temperature down, whatever, it helps with the smell, but it just like the whole concept of a urinal just makes, or those troughs, it just like the splashback people. Stop. The splashback is real. It's bad.
Yeah.
The problem with urinals and the way I've actually studied this, one of the more colorful things that I got to study, what you smell and the reason that you smell it has very little to do with gas. It's not your urine evaporating. And cooling the urine may make you think that you're not getting as much aerosolized urine, which is the source of the smell that you're getting. But in point of fact, it doesn't change. It's not going to change anything at all. I would say probably just having a source of water that's melting constantly in the urinal probably dilutes the urine, and that might mitigate the smell a little bit. That's probably.
I thought it was just a game to keep drunk people distracted, honestly.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Just
anyway,
we're probably overthinking this. Let me see. Next thing, mercifully moving on. So Bill de Blasio is an idiot.
Okay, stating the obvious. But
and so de Blasio plans to cut gifted program in New York City elementary schools, forcing equality of outcomes, question mark. So not only is de Blasio an idiot, but
he wants to be surrounded by idiots.
Yeah, he does. But there was a discussion
around.
The discussion over here was on the Hill, and I've said nice things about the Hill recently, so they're punishing me by being dumb. So they had this conversation where you had all these nice people on, and of course they were having this discussion about de Blasio's plan to get rid of gifted education because of diversity, right? It was causing all sorts of problems. And this enraged me so much because none of the people in this discussion actually understood what gifted education was and had any real business commenting on whether this was a good idea, bad idea, or whatever. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about why this plan is absolutely terrible. And so I have a few resources here that'll be linked later. So this particular article here, I was just looking at this thing in Education Week. Oh, go away. And it has a pretty good explanation of what the justification always was. The justification for gifted education is simple. Academically advanced children should be given work at their speed and level, both to nurture their talents and prevent them from becoming bored and disruptive in class. The problem here is that there's two different groups of gifted kids, and this is where the confusion comes in. The first group are academically gifted. It's just people who are good at going to school. And those kinds of people will probably thrive no matter what you do, because they're just sort of good at learning.
Yep.
And that's one group. Because originally, when they started this stuff out, when we had this, a lot of this stuff is really hard to find, but many decades ago, I read a ton of this information. Originally, there was this program called Mentally Gifted Minors, and it was part of our competition with the Russians. Mm-hmm. It was developed to help us counter the threat from the commies, because we wanted to find all the really smart kids and develop them to the extent that that was possible. One of the problems that they identified was the people with the really high IQs got so bored that they were actually performing at a lower level than their counterparts. The education that they were being offered, sitting in the rows and, being fed information at a given pace, simply didn't work for them. So when they were studying a lot of these kids, they found that sort of based on IQ, their sort of intellectual maturity, their ability to absorb concepts was way ahead of their counterparts. So if you had somebody who was really gifted and they were in first grade, they were capable of doing work at a sixth grade level. Now, the thing about this that I don't want to bury the lead is as people become adults, this difference becomes almost unimportant, right? Everybody basically, by the time you get out of college, is kind of more or less in the same place. That's not to say that IQ doesn't matter, but other traits like Jordan Peterson would talk about, like agreeableness and what is it? The being thoughtful, and basically sticking to your work. But those kinds of traits about basically being hardworking and getting along with people, integrity basically dominate somebody's as means of predicting what somebody's going to do.
Yeah.
So this group of people in the Hill are talking about this stuff as if it's just about AP classes. Like, well, we don't think that we should take kids in, first grade and start figuring out what track they're supposed to be on. That's not what this is about. That isn't about whether somebody's going to become a plumber or become a doctor in first grade. Because what the idea that it's sort of like the argument of we can just give people puberty blockers and they can just stop taking them when they decide what gender they are. The stuff that happens in the brain of a first grader is insanely important. And second and third grade, the early brain is learning things at an incredible rate. And the idea that you would take somebody and put them in a first grade class when they're capable of doing sixth grade work is insane. Now, you can't
don't call it the formative years for nothing. I mean,
you can't
you're
take
entirely on the point.
You can't just take first graders necessarily and put them in sixth grade because there's logistical problems.
They'll get the crap beat out of them.
You'll get the crap beat out of them. It's not a good thing for their mental health because there's other problems in terms of neuroticism and other things that high IQ kids tend to have.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. There's no way for me to be falsely modest about this, but I was one of those kids. I went to kindergarten and I couldn't figure out what the assignment was. They gave me this book and I thought I was supposed to read the book. I read the entire book in 10 minutes. That was the book for the year.
I actually found
the year.
I actually found the statement by the guy who invented the program, Paul D. Plowman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll read you just a couple of sentences. This is in his introduction for his proposal, or actually his implementation plan. The state of California encourages school districts to provide qualitatively different, uniquely appropriate learning experiences for children in the upper 2% of general mental ability. Through guidelines, consultant service, and extra funds, the state seeks to 1. Prepare over 100,000 mentally gifted minors for responsible and productive adult roles in government, business, and professions. 2, to help each gifted child to gain a realistic and healthy concept of himself, his strengths, his weaknesses, his areas of needed improvement, and his personalities. And 3, to develop these children into intellectually and creatively capable, productive, and compassionate human beings. And I've got his whole dissertation here on it. And I won't read it to you, but I just thought it was very interesting. This was 1971, I believe.
Yeah, and now they're not talking about a lot of this stuff because, of course, it almost sounds like eugenics.
Well, the bell curve is racist.
Well, what they did is they merged. They did. A bunch of people said, "Well, I know that my little Jimmy doesn't have a 132 IQ, so but I really don't want him to be left behind. Why should he get an inferior education to all the little Poindexters that you've identified with your Stanford Binet tests in second grade or kindergarten?
But
why should Jimmy
Poindexters have different needs from little Jimmy?
Poindexters have different needs than little Jimmy. So I found this article, which I find to be just absolutely telling. God, the education is just run by idiots. Proof points. Gifted programs provide little to no academic boost, new study says. Now, this is one of those things where you got to read past the first sentence. National study finds Black students and low-income children don't reap the small gains achieved by white, Asian, and high-income children. Now,
wait, what?
Part of the problem here is
can you say that again?
National study finds Black students and low-income children don't reap the small gains achieved by white, Asian, and high-income children. So this is
Black kids are just as smart as rich kids.
This is fundamentally sort of dishonest because what they're saying is if you take students and you try to basically have equity, you take people who didn't test their way in and you just put them in these classes, miraculously it doesn't make them achieve better.
No,
I know, because ultimately there's gifted education. There's also sort of accelerated education, right? Because you want to be able to where appropriate, skip kids in terms of grades and give them more challenging work if they can handle it. But throwing all the gifted kids onto the bus, in my opinion, is almost as bad as taking all the educationally challenged kids and throwing them onto the bus. I realize it's an oppressed minority that nobody cares about except for me, probably. But the idea that it doesn't matter, that it's just, it'll be fine. They'll just work on their social development while we make them sit there and just be bored out of their freaking minds. If you want to ruin the academic career of a bright kid, by all means, just mainstream them at an early age.
And
this discussion on the Hill just made me so freaking angry.
Homeschooling.
I think it really started when they first, 15 years ago, started attacking the notion of the bell curve, and it was never a rule. It was a guideline. It was a template in which we could sort of sort people in public education. Yes, the lion's share in the middle, they can go into standard classes, and if they, there's no real it's an equal start, an equal chance for everyone in those quote unquote normal classes to just get an education. And then you had the extremes, like the remedial classes and the advanced classes, which were generally smaller. And, depending on which side you're looking at, they had specialized teachers that would tend to the needs that those children required to reach their potentials. Because obviously, remedial kids, they just need a helping hand to be able to finish the curriculum. Whereas advanced kids, you want to, like you were saying, stimulate and give them the best chance to go out into the world and send our people to the moon, send people to Mars, develop the new vaccines and the cure for cancer and all these other, talking points. Like, it seems so counterintuitive that you would want to stifle something like that, regardless of, like, take color out of it. Just anybody who can test at any point. It doesn't have to be what was the name of that test when they do in year one?
The Stanford Binet.
The Stanford Binet. Thank you.
That's actually the name of the scale.
Because just as an anecdote from myself, Skep, when I was in grade 10 and for the next couple of years, I kept failing basic math classes. And it had a lot to do with the teachers, but it was also my not understanding the way that they were teaching it. But when I got into grade 12 and we had a grade 13 back when I was there, physics classes, I excelled. I was in the top percentile of my classes. And they looked at me, they go, okay, wait, what's wrong here? Because he's been, sort of a middle of the pack student. And then all of a sudden, these two very similar things, but are very diametrically opposed in how he's succeeding. We needed to take a look at that. They did another study. They said, oh, wow, this person should have been in a gifted program of some kind because he had strengths in some places, but he had very bad weaknesses in others, and neither was nurtured. So it kind of left me in a little bit of a limbo spot. And I saw that happening because, like gravitates to like in a lot of my peers, not just in my own school but across the city. Like, I made friends from across the city we were all kind of in that same boat. We all kind of excelled in one field or another, but had very glaring hindrances in others that kind of kept us out of being in one of those generalized acceleration programs, the gifted programs, if you will. Because like Harry said, there's very different types of gifted, very different types.
Yeah, well, there's academically gifted and there's intellectually gifted, and
exactly, I was not academically gifted at all.
They have different needs, but the problem with the Hill thing, the thing that motivated all this was, de Blasio being an idiot is what motivated a lot of it. But the thing that motivated it was, I'm watching this thing thinking, okay, this is journalism. I'm not saying that all journalists are dumb. I'm just saying that in all likelihood, this is a bunch of people with 110, 115 IQs trying to decide what education should look like for the really clever kids. And I don't, because if we were having a discussion about abortion or contraception or any number of other things, people would be, oh, you got to have at least one person here who represents the group affected. But no, when it comes to just people armchair quarterbacking what education should look like for these kids, oh yeah, it's fine. Let's just let the warm summer day people decide how it's supposed to work.
Exactly. It's all about the advanced placement, Harry.
Yeah, it's all about. Well, anyway, nobody wants to hear me talk about this any longer. Let's see. So
I just want to add one other thing, that there are a couple of European countries who do handle public education really well because they do it on a very local level. Obviously, they have very small countries comparatively to ours, but they do have very good testing for the extremes, whether they're lacking or advanced, and very good programs, publicly funded programs within the school systems.
Yeah. Denmark comes to mind.
Denmark, exactly, where if you are academically gifted, you will be with the other academically gifted students in a academically gifted centric program. Whereas if you're intellectually gifted, they will put you in, again, a similar program with similar students, and it works.
It does, but you do want to do a little bit of cross-pollination. I do remember in my 7th grade gifted thing where they took us all aside and taught us how to solder pipes and how to do brazing one day. That was actually a lot of fun. It's like we just said, okay, here's your blowtorch, here's some copper pipe, here's some solder. Have at it, Poindexter. And that was actually not the worst.
Also, remember
not the worst day.
Denver is about the size of the DFW Metroplex, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Yeah.
In terms,
like I said, these are very, very tiny countries comparatively. So I mean, there's so many more factors than
culturally and racially homogenous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay.
And not as stoned as I thought you said Denver at first. Now,
but like we were saying earlier, Skep, like if it's on a smaller scale, you tailor it to that small scale's needs in the culture.
You said,
even in a country like the United States, the DFW education board is going to be vastly different than, say, the rural Ohio Valley school board.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
It's like you said, you should push those decisions down to the local. As far as if it's got to be a government decision, make it as local as possible. But anyway, Harry wants to stick and move.
This is why my avatar is this right now.
I just want to drink bleach at this point.
Yeah.
Geodes, are you with me today, my friend?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk about this a little bit, or do you want me to do it?
I didn't really read through a whole lot, but effectively, what it boils down to is a company that is known for putting out a lot of malware has bought up a bunch of VPN products, such as private internet access to others.
And reviewers.
Then,
we'll just buy them.
Yeah. Did they also buy like trustedvpnreviews.com?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's like how anyone can look at this and go, well, that's not a conflict of interest. There's the wall. Face it. Like, get in the corner. Just put the gun hat on something.
What's the big fucking deal, bitch?
So there is a technical detail here, which I want to share with you. Now, when it comes to encryption, there is in like TLS or SSL based VPNs, there is a aspect of it called perfect forward secrecy, or PFS. If the VPN provider gives you a tunnel that uses perfect forward secrecy, even if they end up buying the company, they won't be able to go back and take data that was transmitted and captured in the past and decrypt it. So when you're looking for a VPN provider, you want to make sure, in addition to no logging and all the other stuff that you may care about, is, do they have perfect forward secrecy as part of their thing? I know most people don't know to look for that, but it's a really important thing in any kind of VPN, meaning if the VPN provider is compromised, that if any data that's left over that could be replayed from a connection by some sort of actor, either government or bad, you want it to not be something where they say, okay, we have access to the secret keys now, we can go back and figure out what you said in the past. So hopefully ExpressVPN is technically savvy enough that they had that turned on. So if you use ExpressVPN, you might want to consider not using ExpressVPN ever again, and just hope that they don't have the ability to go back and decrypt things you previously said when you thought you had a VPN working.
Mhm.
Nord, if you need another shill, hey, minions of the soul.
Yeah, can we get a VPN deal?
Yeah, there's actually an article somewhere I was reading regarding VPNs, and some of the companies sponsoring them. I'll see if I can find it. I don't know if I'll be able to link it for the links in chat, but maybe I'll send it to you guys just for reading later. So,
I actually
They've become
started
massive
building
money the last few years.
I actually started creating a video on how VPNs work that I was going to put over on my own channel. I should probably actually finish that someday.
Mhm.
Because how they work is actually pretty interesting. And there are a number of things that are obvious and not so obvious about what people using VPNs, that basically the offshoot of a bunch of people using VPNs. It really degrades the performance for reasons that have to do with the latency of going
Oh
through
my
wherever
God.
this point is. And there's new technology in terms of the way the web works that mitigates some of that somewhat. So, yeah, if anybody's interested in such stuff, let me know and I'll try to push it to the top of the stack.
That's one of the reasons
I am.
I don't use a VPN. It doesn't hide you. It doesn't hide what you're doing. It slows you the fuck down like you can't believe. It really degrades your performance. And region locking, that would be the only reason that I would use a VPN.
I think that's what most people use it for, is to watch
American Netflix.
Watch
Yeah.
BBC Netflix, right?
German
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah, German Scheiße porn.
I used to watch. I know I've got a lot of stupid hobbies, but I learned to bake, so I started watching the Great British Bake Off when it was on in the UK before Netflix picked it up. Yeah, I'd use Tunnel Bear, and I just tunnel bear my way over there, and it's like, look at me, I'm in the UK now. Can I watch the BBC iPlayer? Yes, you can. I probably shouldn't admit to that on stream, but nobody's listening.
I remember when IP tunneling was a new concept. It had just been invented. We were messing with it.
Yeah, well, we won't talk about IP
back in the
or
days.
IP encapsulation.
Yeah,
right
IP
now.
encapsulation. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
So this is in the science and tech block. So this originally was in a block about how disgusting nature is. These butterflies full of wasps, full of micro wasps, are a science
Ew.
nightmare. So basically,
Do they bark and shoot wasps out of their mouths?
So when caterpillars of a
nature's
beautiful
scary.
butterfly were introduced to this tiny island of Sotunga in the, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, scientists hoped to study how the emerging butterflies would disperse across the landscape. But researchers did not realize that their introduction of the Glanville frittery would lead to the emergence of 3 other species which sprang out of the butterfly like Russian dolls. Some of the caterpillars contained a parasitic wasp, which burst from the caterpillar before it can pupate and become a butterfly. Living inside some of those wasps was another even tinier, rarer parasite, a hyperparasitoid wasp known as, not going to pronounce it. It kills the parasitic wasp around the same time as the wasp kills the caterpillar and emerges 10 days later from the caterpillar's carcass.
So this is an alien inside the alien.
Yeah, it's a wasp.
Inception.
It's a caterpillar
alien
which
inception.
contains a wasp, and then that wasp contains an even tinier wasp, like a shitty insect turducken.
Yeah,
tasty.
Subwasp.
Why?
So you got the subwasp bursting out of the
Other wasp.
the sub butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and the butterfly's going, "Fuck, I'm fucked."
God damn it, Russia, stop this! This is madness!
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. But anyway, as with all such things, we'll put the
Where's
link in the
PETA
chat.
on this? Where's PETA
Yeah.
on this?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you think these researchers are bugged by all of this a bit? Just
They
trying to
could
figure
be.
stuff out.
They could be. Maybe they need some sort of medication that kills parasites. No, never mind. We're not supposed to talk about that. Now, this is disgusting. Hundreds of 3-eyed dinosaur shrimp emerge after Arizona monsoon. This thing looks terrifying.
Oh, I've seen this movie before. This is not good.
Does that look like something that should be on Earth?
No, that is beneath the lava oceans of Io.
This is like something that just sort of crawled its way out of hell.
Yeah.
This is not good.
Yeah.
These tadpole-sized creatures called triops look like mini horseshoe crabs with 3 eyes. Their eggs can lie dormant for decades in the desert until enough rainfall falls to create lakes that provide real estate and time for the hatchlings to mature and lay eggs for the next generation. Triops' appearance are so uncommon that when tourists reported seeing them at a temporary rain-filled lake within the monument's ceremonial ball court, there's a joke there, I know, a circular walled structure 105 feet across, the monument staff weren't sure what to make of the critters.
Do they taste good?
I don't want to know. I mean,
sort
of
of
like the first person
hungry.
The first person to ever eat a tomato was a really brave human being.
Or a hungry one.
Yeah, so this isn't another nature is terrifying type thing. I mean, a 3-eyed crustacean. How many things? I mean, what else do you know of that has 3 eyes, for God's sake?
Nothing good.
It's usually 2 or multiple faceted eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Like,
if Serenity was here, I mean, she would probably have some H.P. Lovecraft comment to make about this.
Yep. Well, I was going to say, since they're trying to convince us to eat bugs anyways, might as well get started. Yeah.
McShrimp.
Maybe there's a pumpkin spice recipe out there.
Yeah, pumpkin spice in an air fryer, and
They make bisexual reproduction. Now I have to. No. Why am I imagining this?
Yeah, this is terrible. So we actually have something fun coming out. So talk about how ugly these shrimp are while I set it up.
They kind of look like what are those? Oh God, they're in Ark, Sora. What are they called? Little
I don't know.
trilobites.
I don't play that game.
I don't know either. Sorry.
I watch people play that game, but I don't know the names of the monsters in that game.
I died.
Sorry.
It looks prehistoric.
But I don't know, we shouldn't make fun of its looks. But it's probably very self-conscious right now.
That is the most Sora take you could possibly have on this thing.
From the picture of it, I can see how that third eye can be kind of beneficial to look for predators up and somewhat behind it.
Yeah.
Kind of like how multifaceted eyes on insects can see almost in a full 360. It's cool, but goddamn, is it ugly?
Mm-hmm.
Fennec foxes are strange looking, Jen, but they don't look like this, in my opinion.
Fennec foxes are lovely. They're so pretty.
Oh yeah, they're exotic looking to me.
They have so pretty, like, smiley faces.
Yes,
they're lovely.
I have a secret admission, Sora. I love watching the fox rescue videos on YouTube.
Oh.
They're so happy and they're so friendly and so playful, and when they get re-released, they're just so cute and.
So we have a weird topic. This is a little outside of the norm. I was reminded of some incredibly weird toys that people used to have back in the day, because I often talk about how the past was awesome, but unfortunately, a lot of things in the past actually did kind of suck. And one of the things that sucked pretty hard, as Skep will probably tell you about it, were some of the toys were really lame. And the fact that we thought they were fun was also kind of lame.
That was lame too.
Yeah, it was just pretty awful. So I want to play for you this first commercial of a product called the Water Wiggle, a thing which is so clearly dangerous that nobody in their right mind would probably have such a thing today. Let's take a look at Water Wiggle.
I'm here, there, everywhere.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
My water spray makes me squirm and squiggle, so they call me the Whammo Water Wiggle. Just hook me to a hose, turn on the water, and
very
see
short
me go.
bus.
I look a lot.
Watch me trip people. Whee!
If I get away, you better watch out.
I just gave Sally a black eye.
Say goodbye to that tooth.
I always do something different.
for extra fun.
Here, let me strangle.
You've never seen anything like me anywhere. Play sea serpent in any pool.
Literally strangling these kids.
Yeah.
The craziest places. It's more fun to fool your friends.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
laugh a
this
minute,
is
and you
super
can play
fun.
the funniest game.
All it's missing are
I'll charm
gonking
you,
noises
and
as
also
it
your
hits
big
people in
sister.
their heads.
I just love my wiggle.
Yeah.
Everybody
Usually hit one too many
loves
times.
it. Sold at toy, drug, and department stores. It's the
Martha, you're drunk.
Jezebel.
Go home.
So you get the idea. This is messed up. I mean, can you imagine trying to sell something like this now?
Oh my
Well, they have
goodness!
they have like the Crazy Daisy, I think it was called.
The Crazy Daisy.
It's
I
the
don't
same
know about
idea. Like something along those lines. You
Is that what the
connect
poor
it to your
kids got
host.
when their parents couldn't afford a water wiggle?
I don't know.
Was that the shitty knockoff water wiggle? Mom, I want a water wiggle. No, you gotta get a Crazy
We have
Daisy
a
and
water
like it.
wiggle at home. That's a
Really?
water wiggle at home.
The
No, I'm not
Crazy
gonna say it.
Daisy sprinkler. Yeah, the Crazy Daisy sprinkler. Okay.
I
Oh,
had
wow.
a water wiggle.
You did?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And was it any fun?
Oh yeah. But I mean, yeah, in today's helicopter parent overly protective society, no.
Well, how many
Yeah,
people
that-
died?
Those people would get like sued. It wouldn't matter.
Like this
It
chick.
wrapped around my daughter's throat. Like,
Yeah, I mean, how many people
lawsuit.
died playing with this product? I wonder.
It
you
wasn't
guys-
that. It wasn't that hard. Like the white hose that you see, that's part of it, was very flimsy and very soft, as was the tip. It wasn't actually very hard. Like it would take a lot to actually get injured by it, but to actually get killed or have an injury doesn't really meet the requirements of necessarily a lawsuit in today's climate.
Okay, they don't have to be dangerous. That's the thing. They don't have to
Exactly.
be. They don't have to be dangerous. Sometimes they can just be weird and sad and wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, let's. We
Lawn
have to
darts
adjust
were
this.
a different story, for example.
Let me make a little lawn darts. Yeah. Does everybody know what a lawn dart is, Skep?
A lawn dart was this weighted dart that you threw up in the air, and it came down wherever it came down, and it could impale you. It could go through the top of your head. That was really
Well, that was like a
really-
3-inch needle on it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That spike would just, it would go right through you.
Well,
And you'd throw it
check
up in the air with your friends or your siblings and be like, "Okay, don't get hit."
Yeah.
Well,
Exact-
check out the this fine thing. It's the Shaker Maker Hairy Bunch.
We are the Hairy Bunch, oh yes we are. The Shaker Maker Hairy Bunch, hurrah, hurrah. What's this fun to make Scooby-Doo? Add magic mix to water. Shake, shake, shake and shake. And out we come, all wobbly and funny. Now let it sit and shrink a bit, so you can.
I wonder how many cancer-causing things are in that mix.
Good Lord. Yeah.
I'm
Well, with 20% more
I
than
I can talk to the chemistry behind that.
I'm Kringle the Glove. I'm Henrietta the Witch.
Oh God.
You know, 'cause in the dark we glow.
Oh,
We are the
enough of that. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is terrible. I mean,
the stuff that you use to make those things is you start with a resin called pluricol, and you add something called toluene diisocyanate, which sounds much more friendly and cuddly than it actually is. That stuff is amazingly toxic, and I guarantee you that the first order changed components of that, many of which are cyanates, are all through those figures. That's the way it always is with polyurethane.
well, Sora sent me this one. So,
Yeah, Skep, I work with.
do you want
a
to
lot
tell?
of that stuff.
Do you have anything you want to say about
Very
Remco's Baby Laugh a Lot before
Nope.
we?
Nope. Play the video.
It
Play the
pretty much
video.
just speaks for itself. Okay.
Listen to Remco's Baby Laugh a Lot.
Gott im Himmel.
It's a Kamala Harris doll.
It is the Kamala Harris doll. Kamala, are you going to go to the border?
And this is how the concept for the movie Chucky was invented.
Vice President Chucky.
Yeah.
Can you imagine trying to sell this to a child today?
Mom, I'm scared.
Can you imagine being the parent who purchased this, thinking he's like, "Oh, what a cute little doll, right? Nothing
Yeah,
wrong with
it
this
just-
doll."
yeah.
And then you
And
put
then
it
just
in the
yeah,
battery.
right.
through
nice.
the house.
Okay, now
It's
this
all
one
laughing
is
constantly.
totally 100% politically correct, and I'm sure that nobody will have any objection to this one.
Into the deepest toy makers looking for something new. The secret they brought back for you is incredible. The Pressman Witch Doctor Head Shrinkers Kit. Plastic and petrifying potion. Just
Does it work on my little
in
sister?
minutes you can
Yeah.
add monster hair.
And don't put your penis in it.
Or make up your own decorations in 24 hours.
Not with that attitude.
Shrink
Yeah.
down.
Oh boy.
Heads for all occasions. Collect them, swap them, give them to your witch doctor friends.
He actually
You can always
said
get
to your witch
shrunken
doctor
heads
friend.
for,
Witch Doctor Head
for
Shrinkers Kit.
all occasions.
Yeah. Why would anybody want this?
It's just
I remember
absurd.
doing the doll heads out of dried apple cores.
Oh yeah.
You'd actually have to take a knife and carve out a face, and this is just ugh.
It
And
is
again
vaguely
it's got
disturbing.
probably dangerous chemicals in that resin too.
Okay, well, speaking of dangerous, there's one final one, and I will warn you, the terrible, terrible jingle for this is a complete earwig. I have not been able to get this damn jingle out of my head for the last several days.
Watch yourself.
So just, if you got to mute the stream temporarily, you've been warned.
Don't do it.
This is,
We got to
This is
sit through this.
absolutely
The audience
terrible.
have to sit through this. Don't give them any ideas.
okay, let's see. Copy. Technology is good.
I love my wiggle.
It's a what?
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 That looks so fun.
The spastic cap.
What you get to your kid if you want them to get bullied.
It's a what?
Or whiplash.
There's nothing fun about this. I can't think of what this would be for except to make you feel dizzy.
It strengthen your neck muscles, maybe?
Yeah, another Kamala training thing. First we start out with the doll, and then we use this to strengthen her
You have
core.
a neck like a jackhammer.
The parts of her core that that matter most for her career advancement.
What?
Like
Yeah.
a throat core.
So,
Yeah.
what is the appeal of this? I don't
So-
understand.
We have in the 90s, and there was the skip those bowling balls attached
Skip
to
jump or jump
skip
skip.
jump
Oh,
thing.
what was it called?
Yes,
Mhm.
skip weight things, and at least with that, you could say, well, it's good for kids because it kind of makes them work out. This, I have no idea.
Skip it. That's what it was.
Yeah, the skip it. That broke
that-
your
that had,
ankles, shins, and stuff like that.
But that was like a one-legged jump rope type deal where you're just trying to skip over.
Oh, that thing, the thing that
Yeah.
it was
It
like you
goes-
were a prisoner, but they put this fake
Yeah,
thing on your
exactly. Yeah,
ankle,
yeah.
and then
They
you would
should've-
spin it around one leg while you.
Uh-huh.
It was like a
You jumped over
And
it.
it had a
yeah.
counter, and you could count how many times you could jump over
Why
it
didn't
without.
they?
getting
Why
hit.
didn't they use the band Devo to advertise that?
Yes.
Skip it good.
for it.
Yeah.
But this I don't see serving any purpose.
Well, it looks stupid, so that's strike number one.
So kids will love it.
Yeah, this is not good. I did find a thing where one of those sort of craftspeople, it wasn't Colin Furs, it was some other guy, decided to make a version of this, but he put an actual machete on it so that you could run around and machete things with your swing wing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, imagine this. Your hands are full, you're carrying stuff, you're going through the bush, you're not exploiting any local bush people to help you get through the bush, and you need to clear some bush. So you just, use your swing wing machete hat, and that allows you to get through things.
Will also turn you into a DC villain. My favorite toy I got is, oh God, I must have been like 8, was a bow and arrow. Can you imagine kids getting city kids, urban kids getting bows and arrows these days? Like, people would lose their shit. You couldn't advertise them, first of all, like toy bow and arrows.
I remember getting a Fanner 50 Lone Ranger model gun.
Yes,
that shot plastic bullets, and it shot them at about 300 miles an hour.
They would leave a welt.
They
They
would absolutely take out an eye, no problem.
Wouldn't pierce the wouldn't pierce the skin, but it would leave a nasty welt if you were close enough.
It would actually bruise your skin.
And they had
really
some good range too. I remember chasing my sister around the backyard with one, and we had a very substantial backyard. I could hit her from one end to the other, and she would come in the house with like huge welt on her arm.
Well, if you get within swing wing range, then it's a contest.
Well, she had to skip it, so she would try to get me while I was reloading, and then I would reload and like chase her around.
As like Tom and Jerry. As ranged weapons go, the toy gun is the longest range one, and then once you get into skip it range, it's all over. That's like getting hit with a bolo, and then finally, for up close combat, use the swing wing.
Yeah. The Fanner 50 was a standoff weapon, very definitely, but these are close quarters combat right here.
You'll shoot your eye out.
So, to end things for the evening, we have one last article. Bosnian makes rotating house a monument of love for his wife. Okay, I don't entirely understand this thing. So essentially, this guy decided to make a house that basically spins on an axle. And why he thinks this is symbolic of something he would do for his wife, I'm not entirely sure. Geodes, you're the one that suggested this thing to me. What was this guy's motivation?
Give me a moment.
Well, it actually had to do with she changed her mind on having the bedroom facing the sun or the living room facing the sun. That was the upshot of the article.
Man, this guy knew how to keep his wife happy.
Oh man, wife says, and she says, you can't make up your mind. I've got a solution. I'll just put the house on a gimbal.
The things we do for women, Skep, the way we innovate for women, and the love we have for them, it's amazing. Because it's a little deceptive. The title, it wasn't like a rotating restaurant where it's constantly rotating. There was a thing in the middle where they could actually just change which direction it was facing.
I am not showing that article to my wife.
Well, it says here at the very end, it says, in Bosnian, his wife's name means loved one. She declined to be interviewed. So even this guy goes to all the trouble of making a house so that she will feel comfortable at any moment with the orientation of the rooms relative to the environment. But, we're going to write an article about your husband and this nice thing. No, that's okay. I'm not interested.
Some people you just can't please.
Yeah, I'm just going to sit here in my bedroom and decide which way I want my husband to move it. It'll be fine.
There's spin the bottle and then there's spin the house. We're just cranking up a couple notches. It's a high stakes game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's important to keep your significant other happy. I do think that a certain amount of accommodation is there, but this guy he's setting an example for the rest of us that's going to be really hard to live up to. It's like when Geordi LaForge met Scotty on Star Trek: The Next Generation, and Scotty, told LaForge to, he should basically pad his estimates for how long it was going to take to get stuff done, to kind of manage expectations with Captain Picard. He's setting the bar way too high for the rest of us, because I don't think I would. I can't think of any woman on the planet that I would make a rotating house for. But that's just me. What do I know? I guess I'm just lazy and I'm going to die alone.
That That, ladies, is what you want to. That marry you somebody who loves you that much.
Yeah, and then won't even bother to be quoted in the article about what a great husband you have.
That's right.
All she had to do was show up and say, "Yes, he's wonderful. I love him very much." Nope, declined to be interviewed because she's too busy organizing things.
Yeah, well, actually, in that culture, in the Bosnian culture, it's probably because she's shy and retiring, which is a cultural value that is cultivated for women in that part of the world, in Bosnia.
Well, I learned something else today. Well, we are actually all out of things to talk about for tonight. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up briefly before we sign off?
I just wanted to close with a happy thing that lawn darts were banned from the United States in 1988 after killing 3 children.
I too am happy that 3 children have died.
Just wanted to share that with all of you. I'm sitting on this vital piece of information, and they actually the way that lawn darts were sold, they were sold as an entertainment, like sets of 4 darts and 2 targets, and you put the targets on the ground, and then you threw the darts up in the air and hoped that the dart came down on a target and not a human, unless the human was your actual target. So
are siblings really human, though?
Yeah, it's debatable. But anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know lawn darts were a thing. They were horrifying, and I should have submitted something on that because I knew about them. But anyway.
All right. Well, anybody else?
I love Mike. Yeah, I got some food for thought.
Go.
Did you eat? Has to be one of the most romantic questions ever.
Aw. Yeah.
Yeah. sharing food is important, and not just for romance, but for all kinds of sort of humans.
Everything. It's one of the basic levels of society that we have is just our sharing of recipes on a local level that become a community thing, then they make their way into like a territory thing, and then into a national thing. It's food is just great.
That's very romantic. I mean, it comes in second place after "Are you a hedge fund manager?" But it's romantic in its way.
It's actually in the Kama Sutra. It's just in the abbreviations part. So,
yeah.
Oh,
Sanskrit's hard to read.
All right. Well,
so you got something to look at when you're talking to them. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this slightly weird, a little bit different episode of Minions of the Zoo. We'll be back to our regular format, I think, next week. With that, the zoo is closed. Good night.
Good night, everyone.